To follow breaking news here in the Metro, 3 longtime city leaders mired in scandal tonight. St. Louis Alderman President Lewis Reed recently resigned Alderman John Collins Muhammad and current Alderman Jeffrey Boyd, all accused in a pay-for-play scheme. So joining us on set to break down this story is Reggie Harris, former assistant U.S. attorney and partner now at Bryan Cave Law Firm. Thank you, Reggie, for being here. So let's start with this. You've dealt with many of these cases in your time at the U.S. Attorney's Office. What do you make of what we have seen so far today?
Well, you can tell from just reading the indictment, it's very detailed, and I think it's some 66 pages, countless paragraphs and allegations. So that indicates this was a long-ranging, wide-ranging investigation that the government was involved in before they came to the point of indictment. And as you read it, from what I can tell, it looks like a classic public corruption type case that the government often brings. For what's alleged, the behavior that's alleged in the indictment. So it's a pretty classic type of indictment.
And from the indictment, we have seen that an informant was used in this case in order to get some of that information. Is that pretty typical in these types of scandal corruption cases for an informant to be used?
That is often the case. These kinds of cases that deal with allegations against public officials, whether they're elected folks, law enforcement, or what have you, they're tough cases for prosecutors to make and to bring. And often, if you have a cooperator as part of the investigation, that makes it a little easier to do. Particularly if you have, like here, what's alleged here, recordings of conversations between, the cooperator and the alleged defendants.
And let's talk about those recordings. A lot of audio tape of political leaders in this case. What did the government, the prosecutors, have to show a judge in order to get somebody, that informant, wired or phone tapped? What did they have to show in order to make that happen?
So my reading of the indictment tells me that this likely did not involve wiretaps necessarily.
Okay.
And that if they're dealing with the cooperator simply voluntarily agreed to wear a wire to record his or her interactions with the defendants and anyone else. And so for that, you don't really have to get the permission of the court because the person who's participating in the recorded conversations is giving their consent.
Mm-hmm. It's sometimes hard to look at a crystal ball and see, especially now this is just beginning, but are these cases usually going to trial? Or are they in a plea of some sorts? How do these usually shake out?
Well, like most cases, in the federal system, whether you're talking about corruption, whether you're talking about violent crime, drugs, white collar stuff, most cases plead out. Mm-hmm. Now, I spent a number of years handling cases like this, and there were those that went to trial. And of course, in our system, everyone who is charged with a crime is, they're presumed innocent until shown guilty in court, and so these defendants obviously have a right to a trial. But again, most cases, just across the board, they get settled.
And real quick, were you kind of shocked by this? I mean, you've been around for a long time. Was this shocking developments for you today?
I don't know that I was shocked. I mean, I know again when I was in that office, we saw. Cases, come across our desk, investigations, and sometimes, it's shocking to the public.
Yeah.
But we know that these things can happen. Again, these are just allegations, and so right now, these folks, they just stand accused. They're not. They're not determined guilty of anything.
All right, Reggie Harris with Bryan Cave, thank you so much for your insight. Well, News 4 was the first to alert you on the KMOV News app when this story broke, so make sure you have the KMOV News app downloaded and notifications turned on to get those breaking news alerts.